The title of today's webinar is Mother Nature Doesn't Give Warnings, but We Do. Our presenters today are Natasha Henderson, a TSMO planning engineer with NC DOT. She has 12 years of experience in traffic engineering. Natasha works to champion ITS in NC DOT projects and TSMO strategies to improve traffic operations across the state. Also with us, Ken Resta, Senior Director of Safety at Stevens Transport, who brings over 20 years of distinguished experience in building comprehensive safety and compliance frameworks for the transportation sector. He's committed to fostering a culture of safety that not only meets regulatory requirements, but consistently raises the bar for excellence. And also John Van Nortwick, Director of Sales Solutions Engineering at Fleetworthy. John has more than 20 years of experience as a leader in the transportation technology industry, helping some of North America's largest trucking fleets improve safety, compliance, and operational efficiency. Severe weather can bring a lot more than just rain. It can disrupt freight movement, put drivers in danger, and cost fleets millions in lost time and loads. But today's discussion is all about how proactive, real-time alerts are helping fleets stay one step ahead when Mother Nature throws a curveball. We're joined by experts from the North Carolina Department of Transportation, Stevens Transport, and Fleetworthy to share how both public agencies and private carriers are using data and communication tools to keep drivers safe and freight moving. You'll hear real examples like lessons learned from Hurricane Helene and how teams on both sides work to prevent stranded drivers, minimize accidents, and maintain deliveries during extreme conditions. It's a great look at how technology and collaboration are changing how we respond to severe weather events. Now to get us started, let me hand it over to John.
Thanks a lot, Kevin. Just a little bit about today's agenda. We're going to talk about building weather prep. So we're going to start with Natasha, and we're going to talk about the infrastructure side and how we're using their data and what they're collecting to provide those alerts that we talked about. And then we'll move to the fleet perspective, talk what Ken's doing at Stevens Transport to support that, to add on to that effectiveness, and then how that turns into those insights into action. And then we'll take your questions and answers. I just want to, I've done this a lot of weather related webinars. I'm just super excited to get both the infrastructure side and the fleet side together. It just really shows how these proactive alerts with information coming from both sides of that combination really create an effective way to deal with weather and the unpredictability. So hope you get a lot out of this. Just go over weather matters. I get on call after call. It's still one of the #1 things that people want to talk about as far as our proactive alerts and what Fleetworthy does, especially this time of year as we're approaching some of the winter weather. So I know, Ken's been working on that, but the 29% of the crashes are involved during adverse weather conditions. It's a lot of money and a lot of crashes involved with those weather-related incidents. So definitely something to be able to focus on. Just a little bit about Fleetworthy. So Fleetworthy is the combination of BestPass, Drivewyze, and Fleetworthy compliance. So toll solutions, Drivewyze pre-clear, our safety alerts, and then the Fleetworthy compliance with the driver and asset management services. So DQ files, HOS. We can really cover it all to help fleets get compliant, safe, and efficient as they move down the road. A little bit about the products that we're really referencing today. So Drivewyze free. These are our free alerts. They truly are free. They're sponsored by states like North Carolina that want to get their message out to the drivers. And then Fleetworthy sponsors some of the alerts as well, pulling data from different sources to make that available. Really encourage everyone to get that. The more people we can get on the free product, the more information they're going to get from the state agencies and some of the different data sources that we have. And then Safety Plus, where you kind of go beyond that, the safety alerts. We add the weather, so minute by minute updates from the National Weather Service, cargo theft from CargoNet. We add some speed and some NCMES data related alerts to warn drivers about high enforcement areas, and then creating your own custom zones, which Ken will touch on when we come to his section. So smart roadways. Drivewyze is well known for its pre-clear service. So this is where we are warning drivers before they get to a weigh station. We've got software in the weigh station where the enforcement is able to look at the DOT number that we pass to them and the information about the fleet to let you know whether you can bypass that way station. Building on that technology, we saw that had an opportunity, and that's why we came up with the smart roadways, where we can provide additional safety alerts, proactive to the fleets as they're driving around the road and dealing with all the different issues, whether it's congestion or disabled vehicles, low bridges, and of course, some of the different alerts that our state agencies provide. So I'm going to hand it over to Natasha Henderson, and she's going to talk about the North Carolina DOT's solutions and how they're using Drivewyze. So I will pass this over.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm with North Carolina Department of Transportation, as was stated in the bio read by John. I'm with the Traffic Operations Group, which is nested in our Mobility and Safety Unit. And as we say in traffic operations, our job is to keep traffic flowing and then tell people when it's not. And so today I want to tell you more about how we use some safety messaging to trucks to tell people when traffic is not flowing. So our challenge has always been, how do we get the most real-time information out to people while they're traveling? And so our traditional methods have been based on our dynamic message sides or public broadcast. And so our usual flow of operations would be that we visually see on camera a slowdown, or we'll get an alert from our speed data saying that there's probably a slowdown there, and then our operations team will create an incident in our system and put up a DMS board saying, okay, there's a crash here, or the left lane's closed. That information gets sent out to our media, to our media partners, and so then they can send out a public broadcast. But both of those have limitations. In order for you to receive a public broadcast, you have to be listening into whichever media form at the moment that it happens. And by the time you get that information, who knows what real-time changes have happened on the ground and how long it takes to get information from the ground back up to change our information to say, oh, well, now they've moved to the center lane, or now the emergency vehicles are on site, and so the lane closures could change. Also, our dynamic message signs are not on every route. They're spaced out on each route. So even if you're approaching an area and we have a DMS board up, you could miss the message. And even just driving, you could miss the message and not see what the sign said. So we were looking for a way to mitigate those limitations, especially with our commercial vehicles, because we all know that the secondary crashes that can occur at the back of a queue could be the most fatal. And so how do we keep the safety as the most important thing? So we started collaborating with Drivewyze, and these streamlined our process for speaking directly to our commercial vehicles. So how it works is our speed maps will detect a slowdown. The operators in our operations centers will validate that information and then send out a message to the fleets as they approach the area. So we started off with slow down ahead messages, and then we've matured to do some more safety messages and offering alternate routes and just a way to redirect traffic if they can avoid the area altogether. And so one of the major things is in the cab of the truck. So we're not adding to distracted driving. We're not asking you to look at something else on your phone or somewhere else. It's right there in front of you. So one of the situations where we used our safety messaging was with Hurricane Helene. If you remember, it hit in September of 2024, which was last year. From the storm path, you see it hit our mountain area of the state, whereas I think we always assume the hurricanes are going to hit the coast, but the combination of the amount of water that we got from that storm and our mountain terrain just caused a lot of devastation. We had mudslides, bridge washouts, road washouts all over the place. It actually ended up being one of the costliest natural disasters for our state so far. Two of the major impacted areas were I-26. This was on the Tennessee side of completely washed out road, and then I-40, which had several spots on the North Carolina side and the Tennessee side that had the outer two lanes completely washed out. And so we knew these would be long-term closures. We knew that this was going to take a while before people could travel on it again. And these were also major commercial routes to get in between North Carolina and Tennessee. So during a natural disaster, the traffic operations group joins our state emergency response team. And so we started to work on how to respond to the incident. So our Drive-NC page is our public facing site for traffic conditions. And so we put up an event called Hurricane Helene. It has a road closure report. So on demand, you could pull and see all the roads that were affected. We created this pink zone that you see on the map to show which areas to be watchful for. And then we have this red banner that we call our special alert that gives a little bit more information on what's going on. So when the hurricane first hit, our message to the public was do not travel to Western NC, and we had a very hard line because all we knew was that there was a lot of roads out. We didn't know exactly where. And then as our maintenance crew started to get out and we started to get drone footage back, we were able to scale back our pink zone and which roads were affected so that people could see better how to get around some of those road closures and those bridge washouts. So a part of the special alert is some detour information. So we crafted a overarching detour, the yellow boxes, the yellow X's being the closures on I-26 and I-40 that we saw pictures of earlier, and the green lines being suggested route to get around that area. We really wanted to show that if you were trying to cross the Tennessee-North Carolina line, you could not do it safely in those areas, and to plan your travel to go around. In addition to this map, we had step-by-step instructions, and here we dedicated it specifically to trucks over 30 feet. We realized that some of the smaller passenger vehicles could probably take on those mountain roads and find another way, but the bigger vehicles could not, and we wanted to be clear on that. And because we were speaking specifically to our commercial population, then we started to issue our Drivewyze alerts. So this map here shows each of these blue dots represents a spot where we had an alert issued. We tried to be strategic on where we placed them so that as you were traveling, you would have enough time to I'm sorry. You would have enough time to plan your route and understand where to go and where not to go. Let me think. And then the issues that we were having when the information wasn't getting out was what you see in these pictures here. We had trucks getting stuck on those smaller roads, losing load, stranded in an area that was already had, lots of road outages. And so then somebody had to come and respond to them when they were still trying to do response from people whose houses had flooded away and things. So this is what we were really trying to prevent. Some of the alerts that we used were no trucks on US 441, use US 74, or use just US 74, no trucks on US 28. And a lot of our messages said I-40 and I-26 close at the Tennessee line and to use I-77 south. So those are just examples of the messaging and how they came through on the commercial side. Oh, I remember what I was going to say on the other side. Just wanted to point out that we had alerts issued in other states other than North Carolina, and so we were coordinating with people in other states and making sure our messages matched and making sure that we kept information up to date on where we should put the locations and what outages they had when they opened up and all that kind of information. And we spent a lot of time crafting messages, editing as things reopened, which, I think we ended up dropping off I-26. I think that one opened first, and trying to make sure we were staying as accurate as possible. So our ultimate results for Hurricane Helene was that we issued over 724,000 Drivewyze alerts, and they reached over 200,000 drivers. We were able to check some of our way stations for around those areas, and we reduced truck volumes by 90%. So we felt good that we got the message out, and I'll hand it back over to you, John.
Thank you. That's great. As she mentioned, the results, the alerts work. So, and they are on the ELD. So getting that alert to the driver, the alerts come on their existing ELD that's in their cab. There's no additional hardware. The implementation is painless. There's very little that we need to do. We can get most of the data from the ELD provider that you're using, whether that's Samsara, Motive, Platform Science, GeoTab, Omnitrax. We really cover the gambit on the ELDs that we integrate with, and so it's very simple. And as you can see from Natasha's presentation, and as we move into Stephen's, the proactive alerts are coming before to help prepare the driver, during, and then after to help the drivers navigate any results from the hurricane in that situation with Hurricane Helene. So very comprehensive. And then we did partner with a few universities, Purdue, Cleveland State. I love the 29% decrease in those secondary crashes. Natasha actually mentioned that. Those are the ones that really cause a problem. They looked at year over year from the time prior to implementing smart roadways in Ohio, and the number of secondary crashes was reduced 29%. So we think that's pretty significant. And then these are alerts that drivers tend to like, and Kendall talked about this more, but the students at the universities went out to the truck stops and found the drivers that are using Drivewyze and asked them about the alerts, and 89% of them found the alerts effective or very effective. So they appreciate these are things that the driver actually wants to get. So the alerts are friendly, driver friendly, and informative. Our next presenter is going to be Ken from Stevens Transport. Been working with Ken for years, so it's always great to have him on a webinar.
Well, thanks for the intro there, John. And so just to open up all the planning in the world, right, as it relates to weather, doesn't really replace the driver's independent decision, right? Ultimately, the driver, they're encouraged daily, if not multiple times a day, to make their assessments on the areas that they're operating into, and based on their experience, their skill set, and what's in front of them, to make a good decision. And we encourage them to stop when they feel like that they've exceeded their own ability, or they've gone into an area where there's something in front of them that they don't feel like they can overcome safely, right? So as we talk weather preparedness, weather preparedness in general covers all seasons and all types of weather, right? And I know that we're going into winter, and that's the point of the weather discussion right now. But really, weather is an all year long event, and we're talking tornadoes, hurricanes, right? Straight line winds from thunderstorms certain times of the year across the Midwest, winds in the upper plains, smoke from fires out west during parts of the summertime, right? Early morning fog. So when we talk weather and being prepared, it's not a seasonal agenda, right? It's an all year preparedness. And so as we start to transition into winter, our program started for winter 3 months ago, right? When we look back, and you've heard some information about North Carolina, and so I want to open up with complimenting really the conversation that North Carolina embraced as using Drivewyze and some geofencing around Helene to notify carriers and to notify the public, right? We took that as Drivewyze Safety Plus customers, and we added a layer of our own geofencing in and around that storm area in North Carolina. And what we found is, and I'll share this in later slides, is that because of the pop-up on the ELD device with the Drivewyze geofence, which you don't get from other vendors, there's an immediate response by the driver, right? And that immediate response is to take a glance, they see the yellow triangle with the warning, right? And they're interested now. And that's what we want, is that interest. What is this alert that the company is trying to tell me I need to watch out for? Right? And Helene, as mentioned, was all the models initially had that breaking out east. Here at Stevens, one of our fleet safety managers has a degree in meteorology, and he was real pointed about the fact that this storm at the time was going to stay a little bit further west than the initial models had it. So in this case, we were really fortunate that we started our preparedness a day or two in advance, right? And we created a circle outside of the perimeter of the damaged area. As a result of that, our drivers had really good information from us. And then after the storm, from those free alerts from the state, right, in addition to our own geofences. And as a result, we had no losses of equipment, no losses of life, which is the most important aspect of planning and avoidance, right, as it comes to catastrophic events. You know, we had the one or two that were stuck in truck stops on the outer perimeter of our geofence that would have needed to go through the shutdowns on I-40 or I-26 and had to be rerouted, you know, a day out of their way to get in around it. But we had no loss because of that planning. And so as we talk planning in general, you know, we talk fundamentals from an internal perspective. Here at Stevens, the way we approach weather is a representative from each department with a leader from each of those departments is part of our weather task force. That weather task force provides daily updates to our operations folks in our daily huddles, right? Our safety personnel, 365 days a year, put out a weather report in the morning that shows any areas of risk for storms, any projected modeling that tells us we're going to have system buildup in some part of the country. And then how is that going to potentially affect our drivers, affect our routes, and what communication do we need to put out? So it's very collaborative. As a system does develop a major storm, right, we're meeting several times a day at certain points during that storm for live on the ground updates of what's going on. What are we seeing? How do we plan for it and around it? How do we keep our drivers out of that harm's way of that storm? Right. So about a year ago, we added weather optics. And I know this is a Drivewyze Fleetworthy call, but it would be inappropriate for me to not mention the fact that weather optics is part of our core safety program when it comes to weather, right? We provide them with our GPS data, our directions, our navigation information from our route planning, and it's laid over on a map where they're giving us predictive modeling on the routes our drivers are about to travel. Okay, right. So in the dashboard view that I have here as part of the visual, once a driver is or a route is identified as moderate or severe risk, that route will display itself on the dashboard as you click the line. And it'll tell us, is there an option for reroute? If there is an option for reroute, does that reduce or keep the driver's risk value the same? From here, we can also push the driver that reroute that'll tell us what is the variance miles between the current route and the route that may have less of a risk score, right? So we're using this daily as part of our routine as well. And when we identify an area, even through our use of weather optics, right, we'll back that up with a geofence through the Drivewyze program. Because again, that pop-up alert, that yellow box on the screen for the driver that flashes for a few seconds, that's what they're going to default to first. Weather Optics does a great job of giving us the National Weather Service info in an audible message to the driver. Complement that with the Drivewyze alerts that gives us the quick pop-up view, and then our own custom instructions, right? So we can take that Safety Plus programming for the custom geofences and say, entering high risk area, please call safety, right? Or entering a weather shutdown zone, please call safety. We have all chain law areas in the Pacific Northwest, Colorado, already pre-plugged in as geofences on standby. So as those chain laws go up and down, we can activate the geofence to go live, and our drivers will immediately begin to receive warnings that the chain laws went in effect, right? We've also learned from past history that if we back that geofence up prior to the last safe haven or the last truck stop before that chain area, they won't get stuck on the side of the road or in a chain up area, a brake check area, right? It gives them a place with services 20 miles back, where they can get some decent parking, a shower, a meal, and things like that. So even in our own planning, we're looking for ways to try to find the driver some safe haven. So, as we talk about the Drivewyze pop-up alerts, as we talk about driver responsiveness, we're very mindful of what we would call white noise in the truck, right? How many alerts is too many alerts for the driver? In that balance, we have to be real strategic on the number of alerts we push to a driver and what is their response to it. So this slide here gives just a quick bird's eye view of when we put an effective alert in place for our drivers, how do they respond? So when we look at the general fleet speed as they enter a Drivewyze geofence zone, do they let off their accelerator? Do they hit the brakes? Right? As they receive an alert for a high rollover zone, do they hit their brakes? Do they reduce their speed? And we look at that analysis quite often with the Drivewyze Fleetworthy folks, right? And we see that we, on average, because of our approach to our drivers as it relates to these custom geofences, they don't see it as a Drivewyze alert, right? They see that as a communication from the company, and that our safety people are providing them with a custom message through those pop-ups. And we see the response from the drivers or the compliance to those pop-up alerts has improved over time by customizing it for the company, right? And so this data here that you see on the screen just really shares that that strategy of less is more when it comes to the alerts themselves, right? We can inundate our drivers with thousands of alerts a day. There's a watch out at every turn on every road in America if we wanted there to be. But if we choose the ones that are going to have the biggest effect with the highest response, then they have to be measurable, right? And when we talk weather and we talk weather planning, when that pop-up comes on a severe weather event, we don't want them to discount it as another white noise alert from the company. We want them to see it, respond to it, either make a good driving decision and stop, or call us for some further direction, right? How do we continue to plug ourselves with information regarding weather planning and response? So as we come into weather in the winter, right, we'll be looking at our weather optics. We'll be backing that up with geofencing from Drivewyze, sending the drivers custom alerts. To take it a step further, our education doesn't end there, right? We want our drivers to be trained and to be coached on how to use sites like Safe Travel USA, like the local and state websites that Natasha shared, right? NorthCarolina.gov was one that was on the screen. If we educate our drivers to use those sites for themselves as part of their trip planning, they can understand where they're going before they ever leave their current location. You know, the old saying in trucking is you can wake up wearing shorts taking in the sun, and you can go to bed with 6 inches of snow under your tires, and you have to get up in the morning and shovel. That stands true coming into this time of year. As you're in the Pacific Northwest and Montana, we're already starting to see little cells and higher elevations that are dumping some snow. There was a freeze warning overnight in the upper plains and Midwest, right? So that's going to be true today. If you leave Dallas today and go to Chicago, between here and there, you're going to experience some different types of weather. And we want our drivers to be well informed. We want our drivers to be well trained to see the signs ahead. And that means good trip plans, right? Seeing the signs ahead means preparing myself when I leave for what my full day looks like. What are the potential risks in my lane? And what are the things that I need to be on watch out for, right? And then when I make a decision that says I can no longer proceed because I don't feel comfortable, am I supported? And the answer there is, absolutely yes. All right. Again, once you state your inability as a driver to proceed because you feel like you're in a place that's unsafe, or you're going somewhere that you don't feel comfortable, we give you the option to pull over and let us know. So kind of in closing there, a lot to be said about coaching, training, education, proper planning, and really how the company engages with the fleet, whether that's use of technology. I didn't mention live look-ins, where we use our camera provider to look at the external facing camera. If we see there's bad weather on the ground, we'll back that up 50 miles, look for another truck and do a quick live look-in. And we'll see, okay, the weather is good here, but 50 miles from now, they're going to hit a snowstorm in Denver. Let's start communicating with those drivers before they reach the point of no return, right? Is there an option to reroute? Is there an option to shut down? We have to give that information out frequently and accurately every day to our drivers. And that means keeping a committed staff, right? And that's the foundation of the Weather Task Force. So John, I know I went on there for a few minutes, and I'm sure I'll be back up when the Q&A comes through.
I never get tired of hearing you talk about what you guys do there for safety, Kid. It's great. And I love the way you talk about the messages, because there is a lot of noise in the cab coming from different devices. And we're really just a mechanism, just like providing the pathway, but it's your custom zones and your custom messages that are going to the driver, so they listen to those. They know how to separate those out from some of the other noise that they're hearing in the cab for these ones that you guys really need them to pay attention to. So it's great to hear that. And your numbers speak for themselves. Those numbers you pulled from the hub that you showed up there with the 9% single digit speed events, those are incredible. So thank you so much. We're ready for our Q&A. And then, but also poll question number 3 is, would you like someone to reach out to you for further Explorer solutions for your fleet? So whether it's just the free product, we can get you going so you make sure you're getting those great alerts that Natasha spends time putting together, or move on to some of the other alerts that Ken mentioned.
It certainly takes a village to keep everyone safe. As someone with a family of 5 on the road next to the trucks moving all that freight, I really appreciate all the efforts that everybody here and beyond put into keeping our roads safe, especially in weather events like that. Let me start with this one. For fleets and agencies that have implemented real-time safety alerts, what kind of driver feedback or behavior changes have you seen?
Ken?
Sure, I'll take any other questions. Again, I'll go back to how do drivers respond to the alerts, right? We see there's an immediate compliance, even if it's just a temporary compliance, there is that immediate response, right? So when we talk weather, we talk speed or rollover zones or different alerts that they're getting. When they're strategic, when they're timely, we do see immediate response. And I'll tell you, just in general feedback, since we've turned the Drivewyze Safety Plus part on, going on almost 2 years now, the feedback has been nothing but positive from drivers. It's not the first place that I've used the Safety Plus. When you make it part of your program and not a third party's program, like we have done and continue to do with custom alerting, when you get over the hump of the drivers not seeing it as Drivewyze communication, but as the company's communication, we have really seen the impact start to take place. And, weather is not the only scenario that we use it for, right? We have areas that require extra security because of some of the freight that we haul. And so there's parking alerts or safe location alerts that we have. Predatory towing is huge right now, especially in North Carolina there, Natasha. Where you park somewhere and you next thing you know, you're being booted or hooked, right? And so we have used the geofences to identify areas that are traditionally known for predatory towing or for high parking issues, right? So when you enter that into your fleet and you say, this is coming from us as a company, they're more likely to respond. And I think they're more likely to appreciate the value of the responses overall, whether it's one that the state puts out, right? Because they've now been trained and coached that it comes from Stevens, not that it comes from North Carolina or if it comes from, Fleetworthy. So I think that's the value there, is if we want to get positive feedback and continue to see that, we have to embrace it as our own.
That's great.
Great.
Just Ken, if you're a pretty large fleet, but what about the smaller fleets? How do you think they can kind of leverage the proactive alerts, and how does that differ for those smaller fleets?
Yeah, I mean, the entry point obviously to expand out from the free service of Drivewyze, which again, if you had the free service, you would have received Natasha's alerts from North Carolina during that storm, right? And I think that's a great entry point or an introductory point for driver acceptance, right? Here, this is a free service. Tell us what you think about it. Let's go through a period of time where you see these. What did you like? What didn't you like? To have the Safety Plus, I believe you need to be a bypass customer, right? So bypass would be the next entry. And if this call's not about bypass rates, but if we look at our bypass rate in general, we have a high percentage of scale houses that we bypass due to our CSA scores, right? And to the partnership we have with Drivewyze, where we're not selected for pull-in constantly. And so I think that as an entry point, you take the free alerts. But whether you have a technology like Drivewyze or a Weather Optics, that we've taken on, at the end of the day, coaching, training, and communication with your drivers far outweighs anything we could ever put in place from a technology standpoint. The human connection, right? And hey, you're driving into an area that is about to experience a heavy snowfall or a potential tornado. I care enough about you that I need you to pull over and get a break at the next rest area or the next truck stop. There's nothing that goes beyond that value, right? Because the human part of it is where you start talking about things like turnover. Drivers don't leave you when you care, right? And when you truly do care, you take those steps towards going above and beyond, right? And that's when you will layer in technology to help you with those conversations, or technology that helps you alert them, because it all stems from, if I care enough about my drivers, I'm going to do these things to make sure that they have the best opportunity for a good decision every mile that they drive.
Well said.
And you don't need to have pre-clear to get Safety Plus, so you can just get the Safety Plus product. So that's a good thing. But pre-clear is also good if you want to save a little money. And with smaller fleets, when I'm talking to smaller fleets, I think it gives them a tool, a reasonably priced tool too, that if they don't have some of the resources that Stevens has, a meteorologist, you can still communicate information to the driver. You're usually very familiar and intimately familiar with the driver and where they're running and what lanes they're using. So you can really give the fleet manager at a smaller fleet a communication tool that they just otherwise wouldn't have available to them. So I think it's a great opportunity.
It's great, and it's simple. The custom geofencing is simple to use. You can set one up in under 2 minutes if you have the address of the location. You can create multiple ones on the same site. You know, our drivers, when they roll into our front gate, they get a welcome home pop-up, right? There's so many ways you can use it to your advantage. As I said, the entry for it is so small, but it's just another thing to complement your overall program.
Great.
Great. Got time for a couple more here. From a data perspective, how can weather and roadway alerts help improve planning or post-incident analysis?
You kind of talked to that in your presentation. Ken, you want to go through that a little bit?
I did. You know, we can go post incident first, right? We've put all these processes in place to say we're gonna train you, we're gonna coach you, we're gonna communicate to you, we're gonna send you custom alerting and give you all these options, plus you know the value of a reroute. Well, with all of those in place, if you go beyond that point, right, and you have an event, it's part of the unpacking of the event to say, where did we miss getting that message across to help you, all right, to where you had continued on to get to this point where we've been involved in something. So I think it's good for the analysis or for the root cause program to say, what did we learn from this event, right? How can we have better utilize the tool, better utilize the program to, did we fail to put an alert somewhere on a specific road, right? You know, if you look at Charlotte or Atlanta, there's multiple roads that go into 285, right, around Atlanta. Well, if you miss one state route that your drivers have taken in the past, they may miss that alert. And that's the kind of analysis you can do after the fact to say, how can I be better next time, right? How can I plan next time to make sure that I hit all of the areas I might travel? So I hope that kind of answers some of the question.
Anything to add on that, John, or should I move on to the last question?
I just think Ken does a great job of using multiple data sources for this, so it's great to listen to. They had one example where he uses maintenance data because they were burning through brakes and they have a training fleet. So there's just any of that data you can pull in together with the different situations and combine it with weather data. The data can be your friend, and we definitely have a path to make that usable, which is the other key element with all that data is actually putting it to good use and in a way that's productive for the driver. So
great. Well, let's conclude with this. What advice would you give to fleets or owner operators that want to be more proactive in handling severe weather, but don't know where to start? Ken, we'll go to you.
Yeah, and I think we've sort of touched on that a couple of times, right? Is know your route, right? When you accept that load, when your driver accepts that load, whether you're a 1 truck carrier or a 10,000 truck carrier, right? When you accept that load, know where you're going and how you're going to get there, and what are the risks on my path. Whether you don't have the resources, to have someone on staff who has meteorology or a program like Safety Plus or Weather Optics. Trip planning doesn't need to be complicated, right? We still can use the Weather Channel, the Atlas, Safe Travel USA. There are websites that are free. There are options out there to plan your route, to say this is the potential for weather, for delays on my route. Do I have options to reroute, or do I have to, take the shutdown while they clear the roads? And those are decisions that, a well-educated or a well-informed driver is going to make on their own, right? To say, I know where I'm going. I'm going across Kansas, and the weather is, although it's sunny out today, there's gusts of 60 miles an hour. My load does not support a 60-mile-an-hour wind gust. Let me get pulled over, or let me find a way to reroute. Is there a better option? The tools and technology can help you to get that data quicker. It can help you to get that data more accurately. But at the end of the day, the value of a trip plan and the value of your drivers knowing that, hey, we care enough about you that we'll accept a reroute with extra miles on your run, or we'll accept an extra, half a day on your route to allow you to pull over to a safe haven and wait for the system to die down or the roads to be cleared, right? And so there's a lot of things we can do as a carrier, but it comes down to, how much do I really care about my driver, and how much am I willing to be flexible to support their decisions when it comes time to shut it down, right? If you're willing to be flexible and you're willing to truly be the carrier that says, I'm going to put my driver's safety first, then we are prepared for the winter.
And you proactively inform your customers and let them know that those situations are coming up and why you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah, and it's part of the reason our planning and sales folks are on that weather task force, right? We're communicating to the not only to the driver, but to the fleet safety managers, to the fleet operations managers, the planners, right? Everyone in the loop as part of that task force to say, when something's happening, we're going to reach out and we're going to start communicating immediately to our customer. What are the projected ETAs for that driver to get off of a weather shutdown, right? Which is an area we haven't even covered on this call yet. To say, we've now made a great decision and we've gotten them off the road. When do we let them back on the road, right? Just because the highway is slowly starting to move again, well, if that driver got a half a mile off into a truck stop parking lot, that may not be clean yet. So we don't want to pull them out too soon and then they have an issue getting back to the roadway, right? So we want to be reasonable in our approach to even pulling them out of a weather shutdown scenario. And I think clear communication to the customer helps to ease that for the driver, helps to ease that for the company.
Terrific. Any final words, John?
No, I just really appreciate Natasha and Ken coming on and talking about this. I think the stuff that North Carolina is doing is great, and it's that's part of the free service. So, there's no reason not to be making sure we're taking advantage of all the good work they're doing. So appreciate everybody.
Yeah, we appreciate all your time today, and thanks for the great information.